Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video, we'll be taking a look at some of the recent class changes, and I really do mean class changes, not just necklace changes, that we're getting in patch 8.2 for a variety of classes. In this video, I want to dive into the details of what Blizzard is looking forward for patch 8.2, as well as to explain why I think they're doing certain changes. Without further ado, let's jump into the video and see how classes are shaping up to be for the next future patch. The first few changes are going to be for Death Knights, and we're going to be seeing some tuning for Frost Death Knights. What Blizzard primarily wants to do with Frost is they're actually buffing the damage of Frost Strike and slightly nerfing the damage of Breathless and Dragosa. Maybe Blizzard is for some reason trying to at least make an attempt to get players to move away from Breath build towards a more Obliteration Frost Strike heavy build. Very excited for this change. It's a very small adjustment in damage to make Frost Strikes feel a little bit better. Or maybe what this will do is mostly will take the burst out of Breath and add a little bit more consistency whenever you're using your Frost Strike outside of your cooldowns. But most of you guys know exactly how much I hate the Breath build, and I really do think the Death Knights need to go back to the big Obliterates playstyle than where they currently are right now. Also, Blizzard is going to be doing a buff for the talent of Ice Cap. I'm pretty sure none of your Frost Death Knights even thought of maybe slotting this one ever. But what this does is with your Frost Strikes and Frost Sights and Obliterates critical strikes, you reduce the remaining cooldown of Pillar of Frost. Normally this would be by 1 second, but Blizzard is buffing it where Ice Cap can shave off the seconds off of your Pillar of Frost by 3 seconds when your abilities crit. So maybe some kind of a haste heavy, crit heavy, rapid fire a bunch of Obliterates and Frost Strikes playstyle so you can get almost continuous never ending Pillar of Frost on you at all times could be a possibility. Maybe in 8.2 with the neck changes, Frost Death Knights might be able to find a way to make more of an Obliterate heavy rather than a Breath heavy playstyle. I'm super happy to see this. Let me know what you guys think about this change in the comments below. Real quick before we get to other classes, we'll also cover the sister spec, the Unholy Death Knight. Overall, Unholy Death Knight saw a lot of buffs, but very small buffs in multiple different fields, which overall culminates for a pretty decent buff to the output of the damage. Your Death Goal has been buffed slightly, a slight buff to your Festering Strike, very slight buff to your Festering Wound, a very slight buff as well to the Scourge Strike, the physical damage as well as the Shadow, as well as a buff to Clawing Shadows. All these buffs are within 3 to 4 to 5% of an increase in damage output, which is very small overall. But together they culminate into a pretty hefty increase for damage to try to help Unholy Death Knights compete probably in the future PvE environment. But also this is going to be pretty insane for anybody who already enjoys Unholy for PvP. Next on the list we got a Demon Hunter change for HAVOC Demon Hunters, primarily dealing with the Chaos damage. Certain abilities like Chaos Strike and a talent of Trail of Ruin, the Chaos damage of those abilities has been decreased ever so slightly, and I really do want to emphasize slightly. But the Mastery for HAVOC Demon Hunters, Mastery Demonic Presence, increases the Chaos damage now by 14% instead of 12%. But I think this is not really a change to change this spec altogether. I don't think a lot of Demon Hunters will find any notable changes in damage. I think this is primarily an itemization change as we get better stats and probably more Mastery. Maybe Mastery might become a more viable stat for Demon Hunters in the future or become a lot less punishing of a stat to get on gear. Regardless, I feel like this is going to be a very small change that will barely affect Demon Hunters. For Survival Hunters, we got a buff to their Mastery, Mastery Spirit Bond. You and your pet's focus spending abilities deal instead 13%, now 16% increased damage baseline, and still gets you the healing every 5 seconds. For Survival Hunters, haste has been like your only stat, and Mastery has been even a DPS minus in most cases. So I guess I'm glad that Blizzard is trying to tune certain masteries to make him just slightly ever stronger. Blizzard also slightly adjusted the damage of Glacial Spike. A lot of Frost mages like the Glacial Spike playstyle, but they're reducing the damage of it a little bit, mostly I feel like with the changes to the necklace stuff with BFA. With 8.2 we're gonna have a bunch of necklace abilities that buff the damage of our critical strikes. With how consistently Frost damage can get critical strikes on abilities like Glacial Spike, of course they wanted to nerf the damage a little bit so that it doesn't get too out of hand. Blizzard also decided to take another stab at nerfing Shadow Priest in this recent patch. They are going to be changing how Auspicious works by nerfing it even further. Right now, Auspicious Spirits allows shadowy apparitions to deal 70% of increased damage and generate insanity, but now instead it's going to be 50%, which overall removes a little bit more of that dominance that Shadow Priests currently hold in 2-target or 3-target fight for any enemies that are far apart. Honestly, Shadow Priests have been very dominant as a spec in most of BOD as well as COS, so them trying to kind of nerf them a little bit ahead of 8.2 might be a good idea. I don't think it's going to make Shadow Priests completely unplayable, I just think it's going to bring him a little bit more in line and not as far ahead of some of the other specs as they have been for most of this 8.15 patch. Then we got an awesome update to Affliction Warlocks for PvP. So if you're someone who's been waiting on your Affliction Warlock to shine in player vs player, 8.2 might be the patch for you. They're going to be redesigning the talent of Endless Affliction. Right now, Endless Affliction takes you UA dot and simply stretches its duration by extra 6 seconds, keeping the same damage output. So this overall is a damage minus to most Affliction Warlocks because you want the damage to tick out as fast as you can to get most of your damage out. What Blizzard wanted for Warlocks to do with this talent is to make Unstable Affliction last longer, so you maintain that 10% damage increase on enemies for far longer. So now they're able to realize this aspect without reducing the damage of this ability. The new Endless Affliction reads, your UA remains dormant on the target for 10 seconds after it expires, increasing your damage dealt to the target by 10%. If dispelled, Endless Affliction will still deal damage back to the player and will silence him for 4 seconds. This way Blizzard is able to maintain that prolonged damage increase that should come with Endless Affliction without really reducing how much damage UA does, as the enemy is still going to have a debuff on them after UA expires that allows them to take 10% more damage, making the DOB-based playstyle over time for Affliction Warlocks a little bit stronger for PvP. Recently, I've been seeing a lot more Affliction Warlocks entering 3v3 arenas with unique playstyles, and this change to the Honor talent is definitely going to help them out a little bit more in especially prolonged fights. Very excited to see Affliction's return, and hopefully this talent will be enough to make it happen. And finally, they're going to be nerfing warriors a little bit further, mostly in the prot field for their talent Unstoppable Force. Protection warriors already do enough AoE damage as is, so Blizzard is going to be cutting the damage of this talent just by a little bit more. So Protection warriors might see themselves maybe be doing far less damage in 8.2 for any of the massive AoE fights. Good thing that the Mythic plus affix of Reaping is going away by 8.2, otherwise Protection warriors would be kind of out of a job with all the AoE damage they're able to output. And that's gonna do it for now with this new update for patch 8.2, all the class stuff. Let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. What do you think about all the changes that are coming up for 8.2? I'm personally happy to see some of the class-based changes instead of necklace changes on the Wowhead forums. And finally, I'm also very happy to see Blizzard trying to do whatever they can with Frost Death Knights, Affliction Warlocks, and other classes. Very excited to see where these changes go, but you guys let me know in the comments below what do you think about the updates for 8.2. Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.